All right, welcome back to another 545. This time I'm with Honda and I'm joined with Matt Daniel. So, Matt, tell us who you are and what you do for Honda.
Well, thanks, Tim. My name is Matt Daniel. I've been with Honda for 32 years. Really hard to believe it's been that long. I'm a sustainability procurement director for the company. I started out in this organization when I was 18 years old. I was an art major in school, and my senior year, I decided I didn't like art anymore, which is, a heck of a time to make that decision. But I decided I was going to spend a year and trying to find myself as young kids usually do, and ended up here at Honda and spent 4 years in manufacturing, learning how to make our products. Decided I'd want a different career choice. Moved into our procurement area, and through a variety of opportunities, was asked to develop a strategic vision for resource circulation for indirect goods and services. And that's kind of where I'm at today.
Awesome. Well, 32 years, that's a commitment. That's really awesome to see that you've been there for that long and are enjoying what you're doing
Yeah.
and now moving obviously into the sustainability space, which is great. So, speaking of that, what is Honda doing to achieve resource circularity, and how does that work support the company's overall goal to reduce its environmental impact?
Yeah, so as a company, we're seeking to utilize 100% sustainable materials by the year 2050. And so these are strategies and resources that are being poured into this initiative, both from a vehicle design and manufacturing perspective. And these are incredibly complex, very detailed, and take a long time to develop. Where I'm positioning it is I'm on the indirect side, which is pretty much everything that we buy that supports our operations, doesn't go into making our products, which is, pretty vast, pretty wide. And so when I initially got this challenge, it was our North American CEO said, I wanted a resource circulation roadmap for things like this. And he grabbed a table and a chair in a conference room. And that's really all I had to work with. And, my first question was, okay, that sounds great. What is the circular economy? I'm a procurement guy. My life is spent buying stuff. But then I had to figure out pretty quickly what that meant, what our strategies were, and then align that to what we're buying today.
So, kind of in that same vein, you guys just opened the new Resource Circularity Center. Tell me about that. That's a big deal. I've seen that kind of all over the internet. What is that? What are you guys doing with it?
Yeah, so our center has really two primary deliverables. One, it's processing indirect goods such as our equipment, the MRO spare parts that maintain that equipment, and our service parts. So when we no longer need those things within our operation, the first step is we're trying to find a buyer for those to really extend its life in its current form. And we're using platforms such as eBay to try to get a wider market for those goods. If that's not viable, what we're doing is we're performing a mechanical disassembly of those items and then recycling them into those critical raw materials such as steel, aluminum, and copper. The second deliverable we have is what we call our Second Life Laboratory. And so within this operation, we're looking to take the general waste that's typically generated through a lot of these goods, such as plastics, cardboard, pallets, and create new supply chains that divert those materials away from landfill and away from waste to energy and monetize them. So what we're trying to do is, instead of us paying somebody to dispose of it in a irresponsible manner, is we're looking for ways that and companies that can come in and actually pay us for our waste and transform it into something new that might be useful to society, giving it its second life. It's really
Yeah.
my favorite part of what we're doing here, and I kind of lovingly refer to it as Project Lazarus.
Oh, raising it from the dead.
Raise it from the dead.
Love it. And I love that whole story too. I mean, that's a big part of what I spend my time on is like, hey, you're paying somebody to pick this up. You're paying somebody to landfill it. If you package it this way or you separate it that way, it's actually a revenue generator for you, and you get to count it as something that you kept out of the landfill, which is awesome. There's a ton of challenges in trying to do that. I mean, what do you see as some of the biggest challenges as you're trying to create this circular economy business model?
Oh man, honestly, the biggest challenges are internal. I think there's just so much activity happening externally that we can probably link up with as many partners and people interested in trying new technologies that will solve these problems. But our corporate culture has historically been one where decision making and activity is localized, which is really great when you're a small company like we were back in the 90s. But since we've grown, that mindset can really lead to inefficiencies. And this is translated into a number of areas in the business, including how we manage our waste. So a good example of this is what we discovered with the wood pallets. And, we found within a 15-mile radius of our main frame plant here in Ohio, is we had one group that was throwing pallets into a big roll-off and paying somebody to take it away. We had another group that was paying somebody to repair them and then putting them through a wood chipper that we owned. And the third operation was actually buying wood pallets. And so here we had like three different groups, same company, real close to one another, and neither one of them had any idea what the other one was doing. So, we're trying to shift away from this decentralized approach to more unified so we can scale our efforts across the organization for that maximum benefit. Changing hearts and minds, it can always be very difficult in a big organization, but that's what I kind of see as our biggest challenge, really, frankly.
Yeah. Well, I think that's awesome, right? Yeah. I mean, a lot of times such a big organization, left hand doesn't always see what right hand's doing. And if you got somebody, like yourself sitting at 30,000 feet and understanding the material flows from this location, that location, and trying to help, put that story together and realize, what's waste over here is actually something that somebody's needing to purchase over there. I think that's an awesome story.
Yeah. Especially being completely outside of that arena. Like I'm a procurement guy. I'm used to buying stuff. And so having some external perspective and just look at it a little bit differently can often make the biggest difference.
100%. 100%. All right. So last question then, take out your crystal ball, how might circularity in indirect goods like end of life equipment or vehicle parts replacement evolve over the next decade? Like what's coming down the pike with all this stuff?
Yeah. So right now we're operating this from a proof of concept standpoint with really limited volumes. But based on our early results, we're pretty optimistic, and we're sketching out some plans of what this will look like in the next 3 to 5 years. I really envision smaller, similar centers such as this being located throughout North America, closest to our operations to minimize those logistical costs and to build those micro supply chains within those communities. That's something Honda's really passionate about, is being local in the community. So I think this is the best way for us to make this as profitable and sustainable as we can. I think additionally, we want to look at opportunities where we can converge what we're doing on the indirect side with the product side, because really at the end of the day, we're really talking about the same raw materials: steel, aluminum, copper, plastic. So if we can make a new Honda out of an old Honda and our industrial goods, that will really reduce our need to harvest raw material from the planet. And it has all sorts of downstream business impacts from both an environmental and from a financial standpoint.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Matt, thank you so much for taking on 5 questions in 5 minutes. I'm thankful for all the work that you're doing and that Honda's doing to try to advance some of these initiatives and really think about things from a systems perspective. And I can't wait to see what you guys do next. So thank you very much. Have a good one.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Appreciate it.
Okay, so we've never done this on a 5 for 5 before, but Matt and I were talking after we finished recording our 5 questions in 5 minutes, and he started talking about Henry Ford being the OG of recirculating material, and I'm super excited to hear this story. Had to hit the record button again. So Matt, tell me more about Henry Ford and his visions of reusing material.
Yeah, so circularity, while it's become more mainstream in business today, it really goes back to the year 1919, if you can believe it. So Henry Ford was cranking out, roughly 1 million Model Ts a year, and a lot of the material that went into making those vehicles was wood, and so he was scrambling trying to find supply of wood that he could make. And so a gentleman named Edward Kingsford, who was a big real estate agent in the state of Michigan, which is where I'm from, he was able to secure about 300,000 acres of land in the Upper Peninsula in Michigan, pretty close to Wisconsin. And so he started making the vehicles, and he was producing a tremendous amount of waste. And so he partnered with a gentleman named Orrin Stafford, who was a chemist at the University of Oregon, who came up with a method to take wood scrap mixed with tar and cornstarch to make charcoal. And so Ford had his good friend, who was Thomas Edison, actually build him a manufacturing facility to process and manufacture charcoal, which began production of the Ford Charcoal Company in
Really?
1920. But it gets even better than that. So after Ford passed away in the early 1950s, they ended up selling that company off to an investment banker that sold it to the Kingsford Charcoal Company. That was named after the real estate agent in the town in Michigan called Kingsford. And that's how the Kingsford Charcoal Company was created.
I had no clue. That's awesome. Like
Yeah.
that's great. And I mean, just the forethought of looking at the waste and trying to say, hey, what kind of product can we make? And now, Kingsford is something that everybody uses.
80% market share
Yeah,
still
it's
this day.
that came by somebody saying, "Hey, I don't want to waste this stuff. There's got to be value in it."
Yeah.
I think those stories are super cool. When somebody really thinks about that. So that's yeah. Thank you for sharing, man. And yeah,
Yeah.
that's the first time a sixth question has ever been asked on Five for Five. So well worth the extra time. So thank you, Matt.
All right. Thanks.